Hello everyone, I'm Anurup Nayak and today we'll be discussing some important tips about your KCET exam. So the first tip is do not compare your preparation with the preparation of your friends or the people who you see in front of your exam hall, because there might be a lot of people who have studied thousands of books, but the important thing here is you don't have to study a lot to get very good marks in your KCET, because the questions will be very simple. So just stick to your preparation and not to your friends' preparation. So that is your first tip. Second tip is to refer to your own notes. This is the most important thing. You have to refer to your own notes, because that is something that you have prepared from all the time that you have studied in your class, as well as from the standard books or NCERT. So that notes is going to be very important. Your own handwritten notes is the most important material that you can have before the exam. The next one is to manage the time in the exam. Now this is a very dicey topic because you don't have a lot of time. You have very limited time and the number of questions here is only 60. The questions is just 60 and the time that you have been given is 80 minutes. So you have 80 minutes. So the first thing that you have to do is divide this 80 minutes time into two sections. The first one is a time slot of 75 minutes. This is something that you are doing on your own. So this is 75 and the other thing is 5 minutes. This is 75 minutes and the other one is 5 minutes. So the first 75 minutes is actually used for question solving. Use this for question solving, for questions. The next 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes that you have should be for verifying or checking if you have marked all the options. So this is for checking. And there is a possibility that you have not solved some questions. So you have to mark those questions as well in this 5 minute slot. But it is just 5 minutes. So first one is 75, the second one is 5. So in 75 minutes, you have to solve all the questions. That is 60 questions in this 75-minute time slot. So you have roughly more than 1 minute here, 1 minute 15-20 seconds per question. So I'll also discuss how much time to allot to what type of question. The next thing is verifying the data before solving. So this is going to be very important for you. The reason is sometimes you actually write some other number instead of the number that is given in the question. For example, there is one famous Kb value for water which I've memorized because again I'm a chemistry teacher. So it is 0.52 for water. But the thing is, this will be given in the question, but what you'll do is while solving the question, you'll read the number from the other side and you'll take the value as 0.25. So this mistake should be avoided. These two numbers are not same. So before starting to solve the question, you have to verify if you have written the constants that are given in the question exactly as it is given in the question. So this is not the value that is given in the question. Use this number only. So don't use the numbers that you have memorized. Use the numbers that is given in the question. Whatever is given in the question is final for you. So the next thing is to read the question properly. So there is a very important thing here, because sometimes in the question what happens is they'll give the statement as incorrect. Select the option which is incorrect. And what you'll do is you'll select the first correct option that you find. For example, again, you have 4 options, A, B, C, D. Let's take A, B, C, D. It is 1, 2, 3, 4 in the exam. But let's just take A, B, C, D. So what happens here is, instead of reading it as incorrect option to be marked, what you do is you mark the first correct option. For example, let's suppose option A was incorrect. So what you do is you read the statement, this is incorrect. You don't mark it. You read the second statement, which is correct. And you mark this as the answer. These 3 statements will be correct. This is the only incorrect one. And in the question, they have asked which one is incorrect. So that is going to be a very tricky thing. So what I'll suggest is, let's just take an example. So I have some random question like this. And there is incorrect written here. Incorrect written here. So as soon as you see this word incorrect there, you have to mark it. You have to know that you are looking for incorrect. So what you have to do is, check the question, read the option. The first one that you find incorrect, you have to mark it with a tick. The ones you find correct should be marked with a cross. So tick for correct, for incorrect, and this for the correct one. So that is how you can eliminate the option. So this is again very important. So that is the reason you have to read the question properly before going to solve the question. So the next one is looking at the diagram. So sometimes there'll be diagrams or graphs given to you. Graphs will also be given to you, and these diagrams or graphs will have extra information. So always look for extra information, extra info, because these extra information that are given in the graph will help you simplify the question to a very large extent, and sometimes will get you the answer immediately just by looking at the graph or the diagram. So diagrams and graphs are very important for you. The next step is to memorize all the formulas and to remember it in its most easiest form. So memorizing the formula is important, and remembering the easiest form of the formula is also very important. For example, let me just show you some examples that I remember. So there is something called Gram's diffusion formula or Gram's law of diffusion, where you have something like this: rate 1 divided by rate 2 equal to under root of m2 by m1. This is the formula that is there. But what people do is, like people like me, we have one more formula, which is rate equal to partial pressure into cross section area divided by under root 2 pi mRT. So this is a very complex formula which is not at all there in your syllabus. If you read random books, then you'll get these formulas, and that is not important. This is not an important formula. Just go for the simplest form. One more formula that I can remember of is in, again, physics. So in physics, there is a formula for force that is exerted by a magnetic field on a charged particle. So F bar equal to Q into V bar cross B bar. This is the formula. But there is a simpler version of this formula, which is F equal to BQV. I have memorized it in this order. So BQV sine theta. So this is a simpler formula because it only deals with scalar quantities. But this one has 3 vector quantities here. This is vectors. And generally vectors are comparatively more difficult as compared to scalars. And that is the reason this is a better formula here as compared to the first one. So go for the simplest formula that you know rather than going for complex formulas like this. The next step is to just go with your notes. Just read the notes of all the chapters, irrespective of what type of difficulty that you face. For example, let's suppose there is thermodynamics. So thermodynamics is considered difficult by you, and then what you do is you skip the topic. But in your exam, there'll be very, very simple questions from thermo. So what I would suggest is go through the notes irrespective of how difficult you feel the chapter to be, and all you have to do is read the notes properly, just understand the statements which are there, and that will also sometimes help you get couple of marks more in the exam. So going through your chapter notes of each and every chapter is important, because you might get very simple questions from that chapter. The next one is to never leave out question. Now here I'll tell you a very important trick. So the trick is, let's suppose you don't know any question in the exam. There are 60 questions in your paper and you don't even know the answer for one. So what happens is, again, you have 4 options, 1, 2, 3 and 4. The probability of getting one option correct is 25%. There is 25% chances that one of them can be correct. So what happens is, if you, for example, select one of these options, let's suppose option 2 is my favorite, and I've marked option 2 for every question that is there, all the 60 questions. So how many will I get correct? So number of correct options for me will be, because there are 60 questions and each has 0.25 probability of getting it correct. So it is this number. Now this number is exactly how much? It is 15 marks. So even if you don't know a single question in the paper, you can still get 15 marks just by putting one single option across the paper. Like just mark option 2 everywhere, you'll still get 15 marks. But what if you randomly mark options? In that case, what happens is, again, I love probability a lot. So I'll tell you, there are 60 questions and out of which you have to get 15 correct. So it is 60 C15, and each question that is correct has a probability of 25%, so it is 0.25. Number of questions which are correct is 15, and there are like how many questions which are wrong? There are 45 questions which are wrong, and they have the probability of 75, so it is 0.75 into 45. Now this number is very small. This number is in the range of 10 power minus 10. So it is not even like 0%. It is like 0% chances of getting 15 questions correct. So it is better to mark a single option across the paper rather than randomly marking questions. So that is one trick that I use. So what I'd suggest is, first solve, my method for your exam will be, first solve all the questions that you know. Solve all the questions that you know, all questions that is possible by you. And now there will be some questions, 10 question, 15 question, 20 question, 2 question, 1 question, it doesn't matter. Whatever is the number of questions that you have, mark a single option for all the questions that you don't know. Mark same option for all questions that you don't know, that cannot be solved, that is difficult, or you're not able to solve. So if you use this trick, you can actually get some extra 2-3 marks out of it. So this is something that I'd suggest you to do in your exam. And then after this, like this the last part should be only done in the last 5 minutes. Do this in the last 5 minutes that I've allotted. Last 5 minutes should be used for this specific thing, so that you don't leave any question. The next thing is to eliminate the options. Now again, this is a game of probability. So if there are 4 options in front of you, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So what is the probability of getting one of the option correct? If you randomly mark it, it is 25%. But what if you eliminate one of the option? Let's suppose you have eliminated option 1. Your probability will go up from 25% to 30%. It becomes 33.33%. So only by like eliminating one of the option, you have increased the probability. Let's suppose you have eliminated 2 options. Let's suppose you have also eliminated option 4. Now the probability will increase to 50%. So even if you randomly mark one of the option, you still have 50% chance of getting the answer correct. Let's suppose you have eliminated 3 options. So what happens now is, you are certain that whatever is left is the answer. Now the probability will go up to 100%. So option elimination is the most important thing, because it increases your probability tremendously. So that is the reason I want you to eliminate as many options as possible. And one more thing that you can do is, again, this is something I use when the question looks very difficult, or I just want to eliminate some options. If options look similar, what is the purpose of giving options which are very similar to each other? It is there to confuse you. But we'll use this into our advantage, and we'll say that these options which are confusing have answer in them. So one of the confusing option is your answer. So one of the options here, one of them is the correct option. So that is the next trick that you can use, so that again you can maximize the efficiency as well as reduce the time taken to solve it. And one more trick I have, which I generally use. For example, I have 4 options, option 1, option 2, 3 and 4. So let's suppose option 4 is both 1 and 2. So the first thing that I'll do is, I'll check these options 1 and 2. Both of them should be correct to get option 4. So I'll start checking or eliminating the option from 1 and 2. If one of them is incorrect, then option 4 cannot be the answer. So if one of them is not the answer, then option 4 is also eliminated. So just by eliminating one of the options here, you can eliminate one more option. And generally what happens is, around 70% question will have this as the answer. But I'd still suggest you to not use this as one of the trick to mark the answer, because it is 70%, it is still not 100%. So the thing is, eliminate either of these two if possible. If both of them are correct, then option 4 is the correct answer. You don't even have to look for option 3. So that is one more trick that I use. The next one is, don't take the question personally. The question that you cannot solve is a question that you cannot solve. Don't take it to your heart and then keep solving it for 10-20 minutes, because it is worthless. Because one question is approximately, in terms of time, it is worth 1 minute 15 seconds. So this is the time, maximum time that you can give. Sometimes for some questions you can also give 2 minutes. So let's just see what type of question we have, so that I can actually tell you how to utilize your time. So there are 2 types of question that you can find. The first one is theoretical question. So first one is theory questions, where there will be a statement, there will be no numbers there. Just read the question, eliminate the option or select one of the option which is correct. So theory questions are very simple, and you have to give only 30 to 45 seconds. 30 to 45 seconds for these type of question. And the other one is numerical. It is sometimes very difficult to solve numerical question in 10-15 seconds. It will take some time to actually write the values and then solve it. So what I'd suggest is, for numerical question, go for at least 1 to 2 minutes. 1 to 2 minutes. And even after 2 minutes, if you don't get the answer, that question is not worth it. Just leave it for the last 5 minutes, so that you can mark a random option there. So that is what I'll suggest you. Don't keep a question to be solved at the end, because that time is something that you won't get ever. So the next thing is, don't look around in your exam hall. There might be a lot of people in your exam hall. There might be people who you know, that there might be people who you want to look at, but the thing is, your exam is more important than any person that is sitting in the room. So just ignore them for like 80 minutes, look at your paper, solve it, and then you can go out and do whatever you want. So that is your next tip. And the next one is, don't leave the exam hall early. Even if you have completed the paper in, let's suppose, 10 minutes, keep the rest 70 minutes with you and try solving these questions again, so that you can get some answers out of it. You can eliminate some of the options, and again cross-check the questions, so that you are very sure that you have written the correct numbers and you're getting the correct answer. The next one is, don't panic. So this happens sometimes when, let's suppose, the first 5 or 10 questions are very difficult. So when you look at the questions and you don't get the answer for like first 10 questions, you'll be demoralized, disheartened, and you'll start panicking. You'll want to like stop the paper and then go from there. The thing is, if you're not getting it and you have prepared sufficiently, there is a very high chances that others will also not get it. So there's no point in panicking. Just leave the question. We'll see that later after the exam, or mark some random option there, because we again have the last 5 minutes to mark one of the option, so that I can maximize the number of marks that I'm getting. So again, do not panic in the exam, and never leave a question for the end, because in the last 5 minutes you're marking some random option and checking if you're marked options for every question that you have solved. So don't leave a question to be solved at the end. You either solve it fully or just leave it fully. So solve it only once, and if you don't get the answer in like 2 minutes, 2 minutes is the maximum time, just leave it. And if it is a theoretical question and you don't know the answer, there is no way that you can remember it in the exam, because again, you are in a lot of stress, and that is not the time that you can remember a lot of things. So that's why it's not suggested to leave any question for the end, because that time is something that will never ever come in your life. The next one is, do not miss out the statements from NCERT, because again, there are a lot of instances where statements from NCERT is directly asked in the paper. So if you're thorough with these statements, you can easily mark the theoretical questions. So you won't even require 30 seconds. You'll be doing it in like 10 to 15 seconds. And that will again save a lot of time for numerical questions. The next one is, keep solving the previous year papers, because the pattern is same. The type of question is also same sometimes. And some of the theoretical questions are also repeated multiple times. So that is the reason you have to be very, very thorough with the previous year paper, because that will fetch you a lot of marks. Because if you see a question and can directly tell the answer, then it will save a lot of time. The next one is, learn from your mistakes. So what you have to do is, you're solving some questions, previous year questions. So there are instances, there are possibilities that you'll get some of the questions wrong. So analyze these mistakes that you do in your home or your institute, and then what you have to do is just look at the mistake and exactly find out what is the mistake that you're doing, and remember your mistakes, because you don't have to repeat that same mistake in your exam because you have already done and you know what is the problem exactly. So the mistakes that you do in your home is very, very important, because it will help you avoid the same mistakes in the exam. The next one is to not put a clock in front of you. For example, you're sitting in the paper, you're writing something, and you have your watch in front of you like this. Now what happens is you're wasting your time looking at the watch rather than looking at your paper. Watch is not important. If you spend a lot of time looking at your watch, you're wasting your time. So watch is not important. This shouldn't be in front of you like this. This should be somewhere else, not in front of you. Don't throw the watch away, obviously, but don't keep it in front of you. So that is something that you should avoid wasting time on. And the next one is, like, don't eat unhealthy, because again, you might fall ill and then your efficiency in the exam will decrease. So that's why eating healthy, eating in small proportion as compared to overeating is also something I would suggest, because again, if you are eating something oily or if you're overeating, you'll feel sleepy during the exam, and that is something that you don't want to do. The next one is stop taking afternoon naps, because again, your exams will be in the afternoon as well, and if you make this habit of sleeping in the afternoon, then you'll face a lot of difficulties, because in the exam also you'll be feeling sleepy, and if you are sleepy in the exam, you won't be performing well. So that is the reason in this last week I would actually suggest you to not take afternoon naps, so that you are not sleepy in the exam. And the next one is to avoid staying up late. Again, it's for that sleepiness problem that people have. So if you stay up late, you'll get up late and you won't have sufficient 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Now what happens is, if you don't have proper sleep, you'll be feeling sleepy in the exam, because sometimes it gets very boring, because a lot of questions are very theoretical. You're not moving here and there, you're sitting in a place. So again, you have to avoid everything that will cause you sleep. So sleep properly before the exam so that you don't sleep during the exam. The next one is to keep solving mock papers. Again, till your exam you have to solve mock papers. The reason is you'll make a lot of mistakes, and again you can learn from the mistakes so that you can avoid the same mistakes in the exam. And you'll also get a hang of solving 60 questions in 80 minutes. That 60 in 80 is very, very important, because that will roughly make an estimate of the time that you have. Otherwise, if you're writing the paper for the first time, you don't even know how much time it takes to solve 60 questions. Then what might happen is you might solve only 20 to 25 questions, and that will again decrease your marks. So that is the reason, keep solving mock papers till your exam date. So these were all the tips that I had for your exam. Keep solving the mock paper, and all the best.